quite a few pigs in there actually. They're right down the back there. Some are lying down. I reckon it'd have to be 15, 20 pigs in there. 25, 30, 35. I'd say it'd be close to 40 to 50. It's found there, yep. They've got an underground water system set up. Looks like it's a inch warm. That's probably the most active hide in here, as you can see. But there's some fresh paddies here, which probably tells me they're actually clean-up birds. So we've come across the turkey there was all runny, like diarrhea. So that's telling me that they've had a lot of roughage over the winter months, eating the hay, and haven't long been out on green pasture, which is going through them. We come to, excuse me, I'm trying to talk here, trying to make a video. Here's the egg. G'day folks, Jason, Nick here from the Udderfarm.
Hey everybody!
As you can see, we're not on the Udderfarm today. We're actually going to do a surprise farm visit, and you will not guess in a million years where we're going. And we reached our destination, obviously Polyface. Now it's got the farm of many faces. We're going to do a day tour here today. They've got an open farm policy here, meaning you can come through during opening hours and walk anywhere you want to on the farm. You just got to be wary or mindful of and respect their privacy and don't go near the houses. So we'll head on in and do a day trip. This is a good place to start than any. I remember seeing this hay shed that Joel's built in a few of his videos. It's a unique system that I've never seen before, and I don't reckon there would be too many of them. The way Joel explains it is this is where they graze or hold their livestock over winter. There's two of these sheds. There's one here and there's one right on top of the hill. When they're winter grazing these, if Nick comes over, along here is what the cows, they put hay in here. So this is what they feed out of. So I'll get Nick a duck in there. So that's on both sides of the shed, they've got these feeders. The hay gets put into there and they eat out of there, but what they do is they put a bedding of hay down here on the ground. They use it as a diaper. When that's full of manure and urine, then they move them out during winter and they graze them out in the pastures over the back. And while they're out grazing, what they do then is then they come in and they put corn and wood chip on top of that diaper. Then they put more hay on top of that. Then they bring the cows back in. And they do that all through winter. So you're building that layer of hay, which is now wet. They use it as a diaper with manure, corn and wood chip. And they lift this feeder, as you can see, it's on a pulley. They winch that up. And over winter, they build this layer up and up and up over winter. Hence why it's got the wire all the way around the outside. So they can build that up and the cows just graze and build that up. Because of the weight, they're pushing all the air and the oxygen out of that mass down the bottom. Then what happens is when the winter's finished, they move the cows out, and obviously now they've got pigs in here now. We've only got two pigs in over here. Oh, this smells like piggy here now. So no, piggy's got a distinct smell. There's a lot more in there. All the way down the back there behind that feeder. Oxygen out. So without having the oxygen is not breaking down and rotting those corn kernels or corn. And what they do then is, obviously it's the start of spring here now in America, they put the pigs in, and what the pigs can do, because the oxygen is all out, it hasn't rotted those corn kernels. They can get in there now and root around, and they're digging for those corn kernels. So they're spreading, distributing, opening up all that soil, eating those corn kernels, and then you've got the additional manure of a different species, in addition to obviously the corn they're rooting for. You can see they've got their specific feeders in there as well, so they're rooting for the corn, because obviously pigs like to root, gives them something to do, they're not getting bored. They've got a separate feeder when they're hungry or want additional food, and the water. And then from here, from that stockpile I showed you at the back, from there they put it in this manure distributor which hooks up to the PDO of the tractor, and it evenly spreads all that manure across the ground to give them that additional fertilizer, natural fertilizer, out on their pastures. I'll give Nick to come over here and I'll show you inside. This is obviously PDO driven. You fill this up inside, it takes it down the back. Down the back, right at the very back there, you can see those blades. They obviously chomp up any thick bits that are in there and they just spray it, distribute it evenly across the back, and that's why they get it across even distribution of the fertiliser out in the paddock once they finish. So there's nothing going to waste here. They're using everything, the hay, the manure, the urine, it's all get thrown on the paddock to add that additional fertiliser. These will be my next endeavours on the Udderfarm. I've designed a different style than Joel, but these here are what you utilise for shade for the livestock. There's two trailers here, they can hook them together and make a train, and I've seen them where they've got shade cloth over top and they're towing them around the paddock. So in open grazing areas where you haven't got shade, they would get towed and left and move them with each graze. That way they've got sunshine in the hot days, they've got shade in the hot days to shelter under. And where Nick is there at the moment, that looks like it's either a chicken or turkey roost. The difference here is you can see the roosting area across the middle here to keep them off the ground, and I know it's either turkeys or chickens because down here they got the grain feeders. I suppose they can either put water or grain. I'm assuming that's going to be grain for the chickens and turkeys, because on the back he's got a complete water system set up. I'd say they tow another water behind on that and use that hose hooked in to fill up their watering system. Me and Nick were just walking through here, just totally gobfounded on the diversity Joel's got in his paddocks here. Seeing it in person is totally different to seeing it live. Just look at all the clover, the legumes in this paddock, all the broadleaf legumes. I won't not even have a guess of what some of them are because we don't get them at home. That broadleaf, so a good chance any of these broadleaf are going to be a good legume. They're all the way through here. So you can see, got some, I think they call it red clover over here, or pink clover, and the white clover which we get at home. I've got a couple of bits of red through my property. I never had it when I started continuous grazing, it was never there, but slowly now building up that thatch layer and giving it rest periods, I'm getting a bit of red come through now. But just the diversity here, I think we counted through before, and there was like 8 or 9 different types of plants. And you can have a look, I'll spin it back on Nick. It's up to her waist, the grass, some of those grass seeds, and those seeds will drop off. The majority of the leaf matter is about knee height, and I cannot see one bit of bare soil through this whole area. What I'll do is I'll dig. We're walking down and we notice there's electric fence or a poly braid or wire running along there, and we're thinking there must have been a water system behind it, which there is, and that's good to see. They're actually protecting the water system, which is the most valuable asset on any farm, from the livestock going in there. I know on our property we do similar things. We try and keep them out the water system where we can, because the moment the livestock go down those banks, all the bank and soil eventually pushes in to that creek, and you'll get build up of soil in the bottom of the creek and eventually stop the creek. One of our dams is like that at home. When we were continual grazing, we weren't that was their only water source until we started regenerative. We realised that now that dam there's only like half a foot of water in it. When we started, it was about 3 foot, and that was our fault. We only new to the system and unsure. Now that we've gone the regenerative path, we try and keep all our livestock out of the water, and this is good to see. It's all the way along there, and as you can see, there's a bit here. I'm not sure whether that has been pushed over. Seems to be a water flow there recently. There's all leaves and debris there, or whether that may intentionally have been left over in here as a watering point for the livestock to drink out of there, because that wire goes across the top of that stream. Perfect example of pastured pork here. This is obviously a little area they've let the pigs into. They've got 2 low hot wires on the gate. Step over the gate. Over where Nick is, there's 2 hot wires against that creek. So obviously keep me out of the creek. It looks like it's about 4 inches off the ground, the first wire, and the second wire appears to be about 8 to 10 inches off the ground. And as you can see, they've wallowed and rooted around the base of these trees. And over here they've got water, so they've wallowed in that water. I reckon goats and pigs are good animals if you want to use them for clearing on your property. Obviously get the goats in to get a lot of the high weeds down, the rubbish weeds, and then bring your your pigs in to root up the ground like's happened here. I'd say this, you can see from back there, it's been thick forest on the other side. They've come through and all this has been chewed down. And at this point, you can either lay down hay with obviously seed in it, as we like Rhodes grass at home, or you can go ahead and you can probably hand broadcast a multi-seed mix across here and then cover it with mulch, or should I say cover it with hay, bring the livestock in to get that seed to soil contact with the heavy livestock. They can eat the hay and they can then manure over and distribute manure and urine across the ground, fertilising those seeds. The thatch layer, then you get rain on top of that, holds the moisture in, protects those young seedlings, and it propagates through. Good way of land clearing if you didn't want to use an excavator or a bobcat. Use your livestock. And they've obviously split it over several paddocks, because this is a different gate we've walked through, and there's 2 wires right down there in front of Nick, and it goes all the way around. That's a gateway, and this is a different paddock. So that's the way they do their gateways. We've been walking through, they just move this timber gate. It looks like they've chained it to these trees. And as you can see, there they are today. They look like they're young pigs, they're not mature, so I'd say that's their recently been bred, and they just pasture them through here to put the weight on them. A couple of them coming over. Just look at the diversity in there. It's a vast difference for the area we just come through, where a lot of this thatch was already laid down and chewed off. There's not many wallows in there at the moment. I'm assuming it's over near the feeder there is. I reckon they've been in here at a guess maybe 4 to 5 days, up to a week max, I reckon, because a lot of this pasture is still standing, like I mentioned. It's not flattened, it's not chewed off. We're not going to step in there over this fence. We haven't got permission. It's a good thing here, they've got an open policy on the farm. Anyone can come at any time of the day. They're closed Sundays obviously, and walk around like we are today, unguided. So thanks to the Salatin family for having an open farm and trusting all those that come to do the right thing. Obviously you wouldn't be here if you weren't into the regenerative farming side or into farming at all. So a couple coming over here now. Hello piggy. Hello piggy. Hello little fella. Nick's definitely got her running pluggers on today. Couldn't keep up with her. She's that excited. Just one to the next to the next. She's bit me up here. We spotted some pastured chickens up here. So obviously these are their broiler chickens, meat chickens. Looks like there's quite a few cages here. As a guess, I'd say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I'd say it'd be close to 40 to 50 broiler meat chicken cages all the way through there. They're obviously numbered, obviously youngest to oldest. They've having some numbering system so they know which ones are ready for processing. I know at home, the meat chickens at home you do, you've got to process them between roughly that 10 to 15 week period. A lot of people don't know, but with meat birds, they've got a fast growth rate. If you leave them really go any longer than that 13 to 15 week period, the little heart can't keep up with the growth of the animal and they drop dead of a heart attack. That's why a lot of them are processed Meat birds are mainly used for meat, predominantly meat, for that reason, because they've got a fast growth rate. Other than laying hens, can live years. Meat birds can't. I've only seen these before on videos, and I bought Joel's book, it would have been 6 months ago, and it's hundreds of pages on how to build these things, how to build the shade shelters, how to build the jig that actually they put underneath these cages when they move them. It's a fresh pasture on a daily basis, or every couple of days. I'm not sure they're rotational here, but obviously Nick's looking in there, so I think Nick's found there. Yep, they've got an underground water system set up. Looks like it's a inch poly braid, or it's poly braid. What I'm talking about, poly pipe underground, similar to the Udderfarm I've got set up. But I've got a 2-inch or 1.5 inch system there for gravity feeding all my cells to my livestock. They've got a similar one here, but that's purely used for watering the chickens. Doggy. Oh, look at that. We've got a protector dog coming down here now.
Hello, doggy.
I think. Hello, darling. Are you a good boy? We'll move on now. We haven't come across the cattle yet, or turkeys. Have to excuse the background noise of the generator going. It looks like we found their pollinators. They've got beehives here. Obviously these are used to pollinate. They're obviously collecting honey, but very useful for pollinating fruit trees. Very active. It's the middle of the day and it's warm. That's probably the most active hive in here, as you can see, in and out of that hole there. Back here we noticed, this looks, I'm not sure what's going on here, but as a guess, they've got 3 of these holes. 2 of them are blocked off and one's left open. I'm not sure whether they're trialling a new honey system or whether they're trying to make a new nest for a queen bee, which they can split and then put it into a hive. Very interesting, to say the least. So we come across those shade systems before that they can hook up those carriages in a trailer. This looks like a very new design. This one's got shade cloth over it. I'd say this is definitely commercial. From back there I was wondering, but it's definitely a commercial made trailer. It's got a brand name on it. Great Grazer Bow. It's quite a complex setup. Very commercial. Obviously it's got the winch where they can collapse it up and down to tow it around. Quite extravagant actually. Throws a good shade under it. Not sure whether they're using it here for sheep or whether they're using for cattle, but that's quite comprehensive. You definitely wouldn't be towing that behind the side by side. Come over the crest of the hill and look what we found. They're chicken tractors. Obviously we've seen the broiler meat tractors before, and now we have obviously the hens and the laying chickens. By the looks from here, those doors are on timers, so obviously they're trained at sunset to head back into those doors for their own protection, and they obviously close up automatically and keeps them away from any predators. There's a water setup, watering hose. Oh yep, and there's a hose I can see runs all the way down to a watering point like we've seen in the other paddock where the chickens, that gets fed up there to that hose. It's dripping, so it's pressurized, and that's obviously got to float as they drink that down, fills it back up. They're underneath, obviously they're underneath the tractor. It's 1:30 in the afternoon here, so they're obviously been grazing all day and they're out of the heat. Some mothers inside, and that's definitely a timer on that door to drop down. They've obviously trained them for up to a week when our chickens are brought out here underneath, swooping them out, chasing them up inside, and over time, after that week period of training them, push them into these tractors, they knew exactly where they had to go every night at the same time. Not sure what times they set to open, but there'll be a specific time to open and close on each of those doors. There's the nesting boxes inside. Don't upset these little buggers. Look at them, eh? They're feeding in there, obviously. They've got feed inside, which is out of the weather. Feeding here, and nesting boxes on the other side. And they're all happy catching shade, happy campers underneath. Oh no, darling, eh? Oh no. So there's 2 chicken tractors here. They must move them by tractor, obviously. I tell you what, we aren't far behind these cows. I'm not sure now whether these are Joel's purely egg-laying chickens or whether he's using them as a clean-up crew, because we come across some manure here, so we can't be too far off his cattle. We haven't come across cattle yet, but there's some fresh paddies here, which probably tells me they're actually his clean-up birds. So what generally happens is the birds are good for, say, to that 3 to 4 year period. You can normally get an egg a day out of them up to that 3 to 4 year period, and then after that they start dropping off, and it could be every second day, and hence why they use them then as a clean-up crew. The cows have come through here. What they do then is, I know at home they get an issue with buffalo fly there in Australia, so what the chickens do then is they come through and they scratch through all that manure and they eat the fly larvae, or the buffalo fly larvae, before it has a chance to hatch. So you're controlling the amount of buffalo fly you've got on your livestock. And secondly, if they're over that 3 year mark and they're only getting an egg every second day, they're getting the advantage of having eggs as well as having a clean-up crew. Because generally your good chicken layers are fenced off. At home they are anyway, on the pastures that we've seen grazed, is they had them fenced off to keep the predators out. But these, obviously there's no netting or fence around here, so these may be a clean-up crew. We've come across the turkey cages. I was going to call them a chicken cage, but it's more of a turkey cage. I guess you can call it a chicken cage. This is quite an incredible setup. There's quite a few of them here. Nick's over there taking photos of Joel's mobile systems. On the back he's got the wheel system, or trolley, the dolly they put in the back there, which has got wheels on it. I'll go over and show you. So by placing that under the back, it allows it to be mobile. Fits under the back. That way it allows you to pull it from the front. If you can come over the back where Nick is, that's the system there. I've seen it on many videos. That's a simple system. There's hooks underneath and these wheels, and that just obviously just lays down on the ground and it lifts it up no more than the wheel height off the ground, possibly a little bit more. Then when you come down the front here, that allows you then to pull that and drag it down the paddock, the full length of that cage, obviously, to move it over green pasture or fresher pasture. So they're getting a fresh salad bar on a daily basis. Good to see I'm not the only one with the crazy watering system. As you can see, not sure whether that's gravity fed or pump fed, but over there under their fence line, like we've seen through the whole property, is a watering system like I put in the Udderfarm underground. Here they obviously just fill this up and get buckets to fill the water, the gravity feed water, on each one of these tractors. I just counted, obviously this is here today. As I go further up the hill, I counted there's 10 moves in this paddock. It's interesting when you get up the top, the growth already. Obviously the distribution of the fertility across this ground here, everywhere I look, well, no, it's called turkey manure, turkey poo, turkey dung, but there's a lot of it on the ground. So that's adding that nitrogen back into the ground. So as you I come further up the hill here, as you come up here, this is day one. Obviously it's slashed on the other side. They've got the chicken netting, or in this case turkey netting. So this was 10 days ago. Check out the growth on here compared to where we were. That would have to be, I'd say easily 3 if not 4 inches of growth in that 10-day period. And you can see the patches as they move down. The fertility and the nitrogen on this ground would be incredible. It's all about high stocking density, whether you're doing it with the turkeys, whether you're doing it with sheep or doing it with chicken. The idea of it is to get the concentration and the distribution over your land to give you that nutrients you require in a designated area. If you've got them spread all over the paddock, one thing we know, like I keep talking about, they will selectively graze, not even graze. Here you can see there's a nice even graze across this whole land, and the distribution is a lot higher than if they were sporadically spread over the property. So you're getting your nutrients and your nitrogen in a concentrated area for your micro or your soil life. And also, like I said, the more soil life you can have and the leaf matter, the more sunlight and you can catch in your solar panels, and from the solar panels which feed your microbes. So we still haven't seen the beef cattle yet. We'll keep walking around and see if we can't come across some cattle. Finally found them. Here we are with the cattle, the beef cattle. Obviously in a cell, same as they are at home. Single hot wire, in this case it's poly tape, not poly braid. Oh, that looks like a newborn calf over there. Oh, he's got an ear tag in, so he knows he's at least a day old. We'll go down close to them and get a video. They've obviously got a few flies. You can see them all swatting their tails. So we're not the only one in Australia with buffalo fly issues. They appears to be everywhere. They've also, I'm not sure they've got chicken tractors or turkey tractors also following up as a cleanup crew. We'll head down a bit closer and we'll have a better look. So all these cows, they graze in those sheds, those hay sheds I showed you earlier on. During the winter months, I'm assuming they get snow here, they graze them in those sheds, and that's where they fed those hay at various levels. They can just feed that hay up and up and up the whole winter, building that mulch and that thatch layer with that corn in it for the pigs to then rut in spring. So I'm assuming they haven't been out for too long because there's a lot of young calves in here. So I'd say instead of calving in winter here, they got the mothers being serviced, impregnated, holding them over winter in those hay sheds, feeding them hay, waiting for the pasture to recover from either the snow or the cold weather. And I know there haven't been any along. I just noted that one mother there was all runny, like diarrhea. So that's telling me that they've had a lot of roughage over the winter months, eating the hay, and they haven't long been out on green pasture, which is going through them. We get the same issue at home when after the spring rains in summer and the flush comes through, it gets a bit wet and loose because they're not used to that green and the amount of moisture higher in energy going through their system. And I wouldn't mind betting during the winter months when they've got them in the shed, when they're fed on hay, the manure's a lot firmer and it would be stacking higher. The rumen wouldn't be working to its full effect in the winter months because that much carbohydrates in the hay, depending when it was cut. If it's cut at a premium time, you still got higher in energy. Not as much energy gets captured in the hay, you lose a portion of it, unlike green pasture. And that's why it's a lot more runny. And that's why a lot of the manure you spot here is flat, pancaked out, because of the high moisture content going through that rumen. They would be a lot stacked. They'd be like 2-3 inches higher in the winter when they're eating just hay alone. But you can see the rumen here is working effectively. Right there, I don't want to get hit by this wire, is the ponding of that manure. Most of those in there have got ponding on it. So that's telling me that the rumen in these livestock are working efficiently. And obviously limited to no chemical use at all. Otherwise, like we get at home when we got a treat for our ticks, like you see in our videos, you lose the ponding and they start stacking up 2-3 inches high, because now you're killing the microbes and the organisms in that rumen, so they can't break it down and it's coming out stacked high, and then our soil life don't touch it. Worms, the beetles are reduced numbers. So our final destination for today, we've come to, excuse me, I'm trying to talk here, trying to make a video, is the egg layers. So like I said back there, I was right. Those ones there, in the chicken tractor, they're just cleaning up after the livestock, so they're not laying an egg a day, where these ones here are still young chickens with a few roosters breeding with them, and this is where they get their eggs from. And as you can see, because they're only a young chicken and they are viable laying a lot of eggs, one a day, they've got the netting around here which keeps the predators out. Unlike the ones we showed you back there where there's no netting, you're happy to lose a percentage of them through predators, because they're not a viable bird giving you an egg a day. Their specific job is to eat that fly larvae, reducing the numbers of cattle flies, and they follow up and clean the manure behind the herd and evenly distribute that manure around. Exactly like it looks in the book. I've got Joel's book at home I bought. It's about, it's a thick book, an inch thick, and it's got all the egg mobiles, the tractors and everything he makes on the farm that you could possibly want to build. So if you're interested, jump on, check out Joel's book. I think it came out 18 months ago. I think it was made, can't remember, I think it might have been Justin Rose might have had something to do with it. But yeah, obviously in there, all the eggs, mamas in there laying their eggs. And obviously underneath during the shady days, where there's roosting and hanging out in the cool. And the nice young gentleman here, as you can see, you've seen me do many times before, is setting up the cell for the next day or this afternoon's move with his livestock. That herd we just seen are all coming down, and he was just saying that that's his finishing herd. So a lot of them in there are steers. So the steers are going to market, and the new mums, the calves will be sent to another paddock where they will graze until they get through to finishing. So a lot of those in there were steers. He's setting them up as we do. They use, I was having a look before, they use Rio rod for their step-ins. I use the step-ins at home, the poly step-ins, the PVC step-ins. But they use a Rio rod with an insulator that sits down on that Rio rod. And the poly braid just clips in through there, which is pretty neat. You think about it, that's obviously adjustable. It's got the screw on the back. Screw it down to every height, to whatever height you want, whether you're running, because this is the same that they're running with the pigs, the same system. They've got the Rio rod, the insulator, but they got wire with the pigs instead of the poly braid. At home, that is coming up to my waist, so that'd be, I think I've got mine a bit lower than that. But the benefit of having this so high, especially when you've got mother and calf, if the calf wants to get away from the herd, the calf can go underneath that poly braid at a young height, and they can come back through at any time. They don't have to stay with the herd. As they grow up, excuse me, they will get used to that poly braid being hot, because they'll touch it a few times and that will stop them from moving out and going into that pasture. Anyway, I've got a duck over here. Take some photos. Let's go for a walk around here. It's a pretty big tractor. I forget what the dimensions were, but obviously they've slashed around the edge, because obviously that was energized over there. They've slashed it here, otherwise you're going to have all that grass growth up against that netting, shorting it out. So they've just mowed where the netting was and left all the internal at full height for the chickens to go through and get the insects off the ground. Feeders there. Not sure what that is over there. I'd say that'd be a feed. I'd say they would use that and carry all the grain in that trailer, because I'm assuming this amount of chickens would eat a lot of grain. See, they got one duck in there. Wouldn't mind betting that that duck is there for safety, exactly the same as those dogs were doing with those chicken tractors, those broilers. The duck see an eagle or hawk flying over, makes a loud noise, or the chickens run back in the safety of that house. Quite the extensive setup here. Look over this side. They've got those freezers, which looks like they're in big shipping containers. Not sure of the length, but they go all the way back down. Have to be at least 20 foot, 24 foot shipping containers. Polyface saw. As you can see, they've got a big smoker here. We smelled it when we walked in this morning. Absolutely divine. They've got an event going on at the moment, a bit of a conference. But like I said, it's an open farm policy here at Polyface. Anyone can enter at any time. Obviously they got opening and closing hours, but we've been walking around the paddocks all day. There's the Polyface store. We're going to head in there. Nick wants to buy a couple of books she's been studying up on, so we're going to head in there, have a look around and get a souvenir, a book or two off Joel. And obviously up there is where they hold their conferences or 3-day farm tours and their greenhouses. Nick's just ducking up to the lavatory and we'll duck into the store, have a look. We'll head inside the store now. As you can see, it's quite an extensive store. If you want a souvenir, shirts, everything, home produce, honey, everything you need in here. Supplements, honey, chocolate. I'm sure a lot of it would be farm produce, souvenirs, books. Nick's going to grab a couple of these books. She's got a list there she went through. I think Nick's already got that one, Poultry for Profit at Home. That one's interesting. Anything about beef. There's the big man himself, Joel. We've got a photo over here on the wall, and over here is my best, what I love, the beef section. Check this out. Check out the range of products from the farm they've got here. Fresh eggs. Look at all the beef. Chicken, beef. So if you're ever passing through, drop in, check out that for a steak. Beef ribeye T-bone. That is massive. There's no way I could possibly eat that in one sitting. Ever passing through, definitely drop in, guys. Like I say, it's an open farm policy here. And while you're here, drop into the meat section and grab some of this. We're going to grab some for the RV and keep travelling around. Spare ribs, everything. Beef, pork, poultry, probably odd turkey. They're probably not in season. Oh, chicken, duck. They got everything. So that was a big day out for us all. Obviously we set up camp now. We're just going to relax. We're going to set up a fire and enjoy the sunset. It's been a big few days on the road. We've been hitting camps at dark, so tonight's the only chance we get to really enjoy this sunset. We've got a lot more farm visits coming, so stay tuned. We've got another 3 if I can recall, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys would have heard of these farms or these people that own these farms that we're going to visit. So we're going to enjoy some dip and a fire. So have a good morning, have a terrific afternoon and an awesome evening, guys. Where you're watching this from, and we'll catch you later.